should wait?
It's up to you. We are on time, so I think it's okay. We go ahead and start. I'm recording this right now, so.
Okay, so then we can get started. Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, who is going to talk about natural control of insect pests in the Colombian coffee ecosystem. This is an important subject because coffee berry borer and other coffee pests has been introduced to Hawaii and Puerto Rico, and we can learn so much from how Colombia is managing those pests. He's a world leading scientist on coffee pests and has published more than 130 publications. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Pablo Benavides Machado. Turning over to you, Pablo.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, for the introduction. Also, thank you for the invitation. It took like 6 months since you invited me first and then get some kind of approval from my institution to do this, but I'm so happy to be here today. I'm going to talk about a book that we released like 5 months ago. So that's the reason I left the title in Spanish, and it has a lot of information about how we manage the insect pests of coffee in Colombia. And I'm going to give you like a summary of what is inside of this book. In this book, we have I had the input from all this group of people. Briefly, Aníbal Arcila is an agronomy engineer working with us for the last 15 years. Carmenza Góngora is a PhD from Cornell in entomology, but she is a microbiologist. Laura Lighton is a current master's student at Penn State University. Sulma Hill got a PhD from Brazil in entomology. Floredit Acevedo, she is a scientist in Penn State University. I believe she is now an associate professor at Penn State University. And she worked for us for like 12 years. Lucio Navarro got a PhD from Purdue University, working in molecular entomology. Luis Miguel Constantino is a master's degree from the University of California. And Marisol Giraldo got a PhD from the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil. This is the team working with me here in Cenicafé for the last, let's say, 15 to 20 years. I have been in Cenicafé for 30 years by now, dealing with especially the coffee berry border. But now I'm in charge of the Department of Entomology for the last 13 years. So we have to deal with a lot of situations of insect pests or insects feeding from coffee. So let's start. I'm going to start with this definition, very common, very popular debug, but I'm going just to talk about this. The all animal populations, regardless of their density, are under some degree of natural control. And that's what we find when you come to Colombia. We get a lot of diversity because we are in the mountains, and we are a biodiverse country. So if we start talking about the insects that are affecting coffee in Colombia, the key pest would be the coffee berry border. And when we start sampling in the field, these are all the predators, parasitoids, and competitors that we find. If you go anytime in any coffee farm, then you will be able to get this. These C, D, and E are the most common ones. The C is the one that was found in Hawaii, and coffee growers in Hawaii are using as predators. It's catharsis. But we also have ahasverus that is really good as well, and monanus. If we go this to the I believe it's this one, the O, that is Solenopsis picea, and Solenopsis is an ant that can get inside of the coffee bean, the board coffee bean, and predate coffee berry butter as well. But you will see in a few minutes that I will be talking about the parasitoids that we brought from Africa back in 1989. Let's go to this endemic coffee pest. It's the coffee root mealybug. We have been studying this for the last 7 years. At the beginning, we thought there were less species, but we have accounted now up to 27 species feeding or living on coffee roots. But the most important ones, and the ones that are affecting the coffee crops in Colombia, are these 5 species: Putobarberi, Neochavesia caldacea, Dismicoccus texensis, Pseudococcus jacksberry, and Pseudococcus eliphae. These 3 last ones are getting trouble because they are working in symbiosis with fungi and also ants. And we have found parasitoids affecting Putobarberi and Dismicoccus texensis. We have recorded by now 5 parasitoids, all belonging to the family Encertidae of Hymenoptera, and it was amazing to find these parasitoids on the roots because they are below the ground, and amazingly they are doing their job. If we move to this sporadic pest of coffee, then we have to address Coffeeless Miner. Coffeeless Miner is not an insect pest of coffee in Colombia, but it is the most important pest of coffee in Brazil. And I believe also, well, at least in Brazil, is the main insect pest. It is not in Colombia. And we have the red spider mite, Oligonicus geotersi, that is also an sporadic pest that we have in Colombia. And I will show you what is the situation that triggers the population of this mite in coffee. But look at this beauty. 10 years ago, I believe, we decided to do this research in Antioquia. Antioquia is a department or like an state in Colombia that used to be the highest production of coffee, the place with the highest production of coffee in the whole country. So we decided to visit and sample 1,200 coffee farms. We took we sampled in 60 trees in each coffee farm, took the leaves, the mines, brought them to the lab, and wait until we started seeing these parasitoids. We found 7 species of parasitoids, all belonging to the Eulophi family. And the rates of parasitism, the natural parasitism in the field, were surpassing the 80%. And that is totally the reason why Coffeeless Miner, it is not a pest in Colombian coffee growing area. For the red spider mite, I will show you later, but the eruption of the volcano released lots of ashes. The ashes affected the natural enemies, and the coffee leaves and the red mite increased in population. A month after the eruption of that volcano, we started looking at this, predators, Coccinellidae. We have recorded 6 species, different species, but definitely this Espetorus, this one in here, the E1, is the most common, is the one that predates the most in the field. Actually it's very it's very it's very important that we are recording this because the first feeling that the growing has after seeing an insect pest is spraying insecticide. And that's the reason we are explaining to them every day, in every time and any opportunity, that is the worst thing they could do, because this is the only way that we can keep the coffee growing area in Colombia very low, dependent on pesticides, like it is now. This is a new pest. It is an induced insect pest. It moved from other species of plants to the coffee growing area of the south of Colombia. We call it the coffee bug, Monalonium velesangeli. But Monalonium velesangeli is the main pest on avocado trees, in cocoa trees, and it has more than 25 different plant species in which the insect can feed and reproduce. So it took coffee in the very south of the country. And we have been studying this insect for the last, let's say, 12 years. And we have found these interesting things. Redubidae, enriquece of the family Redubidae, very common in the field, predating Monalonium velesangeli. We tried to rear these in the lab, but it's really hard. I mean, the survival of this insect in the field is very low. Also, in the lab, the life cycle is more than 1 year. It would cost an arm trying to produce this in a lab. So conservation is the key, and biological control by conservation should be the way that we address this insect pest. So it was just the beginning, just to tell you that every time that we go to the field, we find natural enemies. And that is very important for us, and it is our responsibility to tell the coffee growers what they have and what they have to take care of for the future of the coffee growing area of Colombia. So let's move to this. Definitely, not only biotic factors are involved in natural control, also abiotic factors. And that's something that we have been studying a lot in the last 15 years. And now we are producing the first tool that help us, especially give advisory and early advisory to the coffee growers in Colombia. If I look at the abiotic factors, so we have like the independent factors from population density. Here, I forgot to put ashes from the volcano, but I can put here in the abiotic factors the ashes. And the biotic factors, I will give you like a brief summary of all the work that we have been doing here in Cenicafé. First, it's important for you to know that coffee grows in 3 different systems in Colombia, mainly. The traditional system, that is lots of shade from native trees, low productivity of coffee, and this is not very common. It's perhaps less than 5% of the coffee growing area in Colombia. And remember this, I'm gonna give this in hectares, I'm sorry, but we have around 800,000 hectares of coffee growing in Colombia. I believe it's like 2.2 million acres, something like that. Now, the second system would be technified coffee crops under shade. And that accounts for around 40% of the coffee growing area, 40%. So the rest of the 55, 56% is technified coffee crops at sun exposition. So it doesn't mean that it's like a monocrop with no trees at all. You will see some pictures. You can see pictures here. It's very heterogeneous. The scape is very heterogeneous on the coffee growing area of Colombia. So if you put all this together, what we have is a matrix and a landscape that is very heterogeneous, and it supports a lot of biodiversity and for sure a lot of beneficial insects that are helping on the natural control. So Marisol in this book addresses the abiotic factors. And I'm gonna move fast in here. Also, I need to tell you that we have 4 zones in Colombia where coffee grows. The very north only has only like 6 to 7 months of humidity, I mean raining season, and the other 5 months is drought. So only one harvesting time. There is only one main harvest in that region. And it happens also at the very south. But in the middle of the country, where most of the coffee is growing in Colombia, it has 2 different harvesting times. One harvesting during the first semester of the year, and the second harvesting in the second semester of the year. So we have coffee for the entire year. And that's important because for the coffee berry border, it's paradise. It's food available all year long. And altitude is a very important thing in Colombia because the coffee growing area is in between the 1,000 and 2,000 meters above the sea level. So what happens at 1,000 is totally different of what happens at 2,000 meters above the sea level. So put all this together: altitude affecting temperature, raining, etc. And put together the management, and you get different levels of shadow, different times of the stumping, different times of the harvesting and processing. The vegetative development is in, I mean, some insects attacking the plants when the plants are growing, some others affecting the plants when the plant is producing. So we have to address many situations in here, and having all these systems, the meteorological net working in Colombia for the coffee growing area specifically, because it's being paid by the coffee growers since 70 years ago. So we have been able to build a very solid climatic condition for the coffee growing area in Colombia. So it is on hand now, and we are using it every day a little bit more and more. But for coffee pests, we started using it only like 3 to 5 years ago. I'll show you how. Let's go very quickly to see how the temperature is affecting heavily the reproductive capacity of the coffee berry border. So if we look at 20 Celsius degrees, I translate this to Fahrenheit, we are getting a total descendant of 40 insects, 40, an offspring of 40 per female of coffee berry border. But if we increase the temperature only for 2 Celsius degrees, it doubles. And if we go to 24 degrees, or it stays the same, but you will see what happens with the life cycle. But if we go to 25, so it triples. So we come from 40 offspring per female, and we can go all the way to 100, to more than 120 offspring coming from the same female if we just increase temperature. So, and the life cycle happens with the duration happens exactly the same. From egg to adult, it moves from 72 days at 18 degrees to 22 days at 25 Celsius degrees. So it's a totally different situation if I move from 1,000 meters above sea level to 2,000 meters above the sea level. So having all these expressions that to model the biology of the coffee berry butter, and having all the situations farm by farm, regardless to temperature and relative humidity, led us to put this in a map. So this is the coffee growing area of Colombia. There you can see what is happening in the 850,000 hectares, and you have different kinds of vulnerabilities of the coffee growing area to coffee berry butter. What you see in red is highly vulnerable to coffee berry butter because you can get more than 11 generations per year. What you see in yellow is a moderate vulnerability because you can get between 7 and 11 generations a year. Then you go to this green one, light green, and that would be low vulnerability, getting between 4 to 7 generations a year. And very low would be this dark green, and that accounts for places where you get less than 4 generations a year. So we know now that having an IPM strategy to the whole country is to waste the money and the time, because coffee berry butter is located mainly in 7 to 11% of the whole coffee growing area of Colombia. And when we move from neutral conditions to El Niño conditions, it means from normal climate to hotter and drought conditions, then we will double the area and we can go to 15 to 30% of the coffee growing area highly vulnerable to the coffee berry butter. So, like the fire department, if we have an advisory of El Niño coming, all the extension program starts going to the field and addressing that situation to the coffee growers for them to be alert and to start implementing the integrated pest management of the coffee berry butter and to be able to manage to control the insect that year in a deeper, I mean, to be very, very focused on dealing with that pest. If La Niña condition is addressed by the climatic conditions, so we are fine. We are working in the same places. And if we are in the neutral conditions, then we deal with the coffee berry butter in the same places and with the same coffee growers that we have been dealing with in the last 30 years. We've put all this together in a document like this, like this one I show you here. It is like a technical bulletin. We produce one for each department or each state that grows coffee in the country, and they can see in a more detailed way the farms that are located in red, yellow, or green, and they can just focus on the red and the yellow if necessary, and it's very handy to work with this. For the extension program, we have 1,000 agronomists working in the whole country. They are our extension team, and everything, all the results from the research that is being produced at Cenicafé is given to the extension program, and they move to the whole country, transferring the results of the research to the coffee growers. It happens very quickly. This is Caldas. Caldas is one of the main places growing coffee in Colombia. And as you can see in there, you see a lot of red. And when El Nino came in 2015 and 2016, so in general, the department, the state, surpassed the economic level for the insect pest. We went up to 8% of infestation level in the field, and that's not good, but it can happen. And for the rest of the time, it is below the economic level. But if we move to Huila, that is the first place or the most producing state, the state that produces the most coffee in Colombia, it's Huila. And as you can see, you don't see much red in here. And what we have been recording in the last 12 years is that it's been always under, well, after 2010, it has been always under the economic level. So no worries in Huila. We need to worry in Caldas, and we need to worry in Antioquia and the departments or the states where the broca is really a problem. This is an example of a biotic influence of the ashes. We are very close from a volcano. The volcano is active. It's a volcano that does not produce lava, but it produces ashes from time to time. So every time that we have ashes coming out from the volcano, what we find is this in the vicinities of the volcano. This is the damages, heavy damages of red spider mite in coffee. It needs to, we need to spray sometimes some pesticides in localized areas, but natural control is doing wonders on that. Wind is the way of transportation of this, but you know, look at this. This is I love this picture because this is taken from my close from my office to another area to the across from. You can see coffee growing and this is what we saw. Very red in here. So we have here trees, and the trees were able to stop the mite to come from this side to this side. So it really works, like the barriers. So having trees as barriers would work as a system to avoid this pest. And for the Monalonian de Los Angeles, the new pest that we are dealing with, that we found was the relative humidity is involved in the appearance and the damages caused in the field. If you go to places where the relative humidity is high most of the year, and it's so there is no problem with this pest. But if you go to these areas where you start seeing decreasing the relative humidity, and then it decreases heavily, and then it starts going up very quickly, that is a situation that somehow triggers the emergence of the insect in the field and starting damaging the coffee plant. So when this starts happening, it's our time to address the farmers and to tell them, hey, start diagnosing. You are going to have a problem. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm having problem with my computer. Are you still seeing?
Yes, we can still see your slide and you.
Let me see. My computer is trying to do something right now. I'm gonna. Let's see. Okay. Whew. Are you still seeing my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. Okay, let's keep going. So those were the examples how temperature affects heavily coffee berry butter, ashes affecting red spider mite, and relative humidity affecting the life cycle and the behavior of Monalonium velesangeli when it's attacking coffee. So we are using that information now, especially for early advisory alert given to the extension program and to the coffee growing to the coffee growers in Colombia. But let's move to natural to biotic factors. This is more common. This is what we have been talking most in the last year. And the book was originated because of this. But later on, we saw that we could address a lot of different situations of natural control, having the experience of dealing with the insects for the last 70 years in Colombia. So that's the reason I have to tell this. By now, we have recorded a little bit more than 140 species of insects or arthropods affecting coffee crops in Colombia. None of them have become really pests of coffee. We deal with the same 5: coffee berry butter, the key pests, the mealybugs in the roots, 5 species, Coffeeless Miner from time to time, but under natural control, Monalonium velesangeli in the south of the country, and it comes and it's only 2 moments of attacking in the field, depending on relative humidity. And the last one would be the red spider mite that comes when the volcano starts increasing the activity. For the rest, totally under natural control. But I'm gonna give you examples because these examples are affecting in somehow or being helping some other crops that are being grown in the coffee growing area in Colombia, and fruit flies. And Astrefa fraterculus is very common affecting fruits in Colombia. It affects avocado, guava, and many fruits, all of them, papaya, etc. We started recording fruit fly in coffee, trying to understand if it could be a pest or not, and if it could become a pest sooner or later in Colombia. We wanted just to know. When we started sampling, we started looking more parasitoids than fruit flies. So we have this Dorictobracon, it's a braconidae, and it's very common. I mean, it's very common, and it's coffee. I mean, fruit flies is not a pest of coffee in Colombia, but it is in Central America. And what we have in the coffee growing area in Colombia is a dispense of parasitoids for fruit flies that are helping to naturally control these pests in the fruit trees that are growing in the coffee growing area. So it's beneficial. It's coffee growing area is also helping to distribute parasitoids. This is a beautiful example. This is Compsus. Compsus is a pest of oranges in the vicinity of the coffee growing area. And cordyceps is a beautiful entomopathogen growing from this Compsus. We just took this picture in the field. Amphidobia is an hymenopteran that is also very common and is helping to decrease populations of Compsus. Let's do this one. Very common. This is Trichoplusia. Trichoplusia, for us, it's not a pest. It could be for other crops, but this is a healthy larva. This is a parasitized larva, very common to get this in Circides. Very common. I mean, This one is also one Coccus viridis. I believe it could become a problem in Central America and some other places. It could be in ornamental plants. But here, what we find is mostly Lecanicilium lecani naturally controlling these populations. It is overshade. I mean, the shade is the one that is causing these insects to grow in population, but it's also the good environment for Lecanicilium to attack the insects. Also, this Asia, this coccinellid, is very effective, decreasing populations of Coccus viridis. This is a new record for a new species for science. It is Paeselocloeus coffeaphilus. This grasshopper, we found this grasshopper in a farm, in a coffee farm. I don't remember the year. It was probably 7 years ago, and it was the first record of the grasshopper. Look at the way it was attacking the coffee. So it attacked the leaves, attacked the growings, the new growings. Here you can see a nymph of the grasshopper, different stages of the grasshopper. Here you can see the grasshopper feeding from the pulp, from the skin. And look at the way you could see that coffee crop in the field. Amazingly, we kept working on this insect, and we got this nematode growing out of the body of the grasshopper. And what we found was that the coffee farm was very close from the forest, and the forest had the grasshopper, and the grasshopper every once a year went down to the coffee crop, feed on the coffee crop, and get back to the forest to finish the cycle. But using this, I mean, it according to the coffee farmer, it was affecting the farm for the last since 1961. And it was funny because never told us. And when we got there, we started looking on what was happening. We also get some Bavaria bastiana affecting naturally that population of grasshoppers. But we have been using all this information from the field as biological control. So Carmenza and Laura addressed very well in the chapter, in this book, what we have been doing with this, especially entomopathogens. We have been working for the last 25 years with Bavaria bastiana. We have tested lots of strains, some coming from coffee berry butter, some others coming from other pests. And the one that is working on coffee berry butter, it was isolated from Diatraea saccharalis, which is a pest in sugarcane, and it's working very well. I mean, it's being used as a biological insecticide from now, and all the research came from Cenicafé. We have been also working with Metarrhizium. Metarrhizium was good, it was working, but Bavaria has been superior on controlling coffee berry butter. Also, we have been working, this is Monalonion being attacked by Bavaria bastiana. It's one strain specifically. We tested like 20, and this one was working. It works really well. This is Metarrhizium working on root mealybugs. It's a Metarrhizium that we have in our entomopathogen collection, and it's been working. What we have is 314 strains reactivated, preserved, and stored. That's the collection that we have. Well, it is not expensive to keep it in Cenicafé, but we have, I mean, and we need to use these strains from time to time to control some species in the coffee growing area. And this is the example of the grasshopper. So being that grasshopper new for science, new for us, the new record for us in Colombia. With this, we decided to look into the strains that we have in our collection, and we found this Metarhizium anisople acridum that was donated by the CABI long time ago, like 30 years ago, and it worked wonderfully. Look at the treatment, treatment 1 and 2 in the mortality that caused on the grasshoppers. And we have a Metarhizium anisople that was available in the market. It did not work at all. And we have our control, 0 with 0 control. Look at the way, look, it was beautiful. So we decided to produce a batch in our lab and went to the coffee farmer, sprayed, and that was the end of it. That coffee farm was very happy, very thankful to us because his problem was totally resolved because of this work, and everything was with natural control. There was not a centimeter of pesticide sprayed in that farm. As I told you before, we tried with Reduvide. We tried to rear Reduvide to control Monalonium de Los Angeles, but there is no way to get that approach. It's not possible. Too expensive. But also with this information, we went to the coffee growing area and explained to them that some of them were spraying insecticides. So I went with them, look for these Reduvides in farms with no spraying, then moved to the farms with a spraying of pesticides. And they know now that it's their responsibility to keep these natural enemies, controlling naturally that pest, because the pesticides would increase the problem. They already know. I'm going to explain what we have been doing very quickly. I mean, my time went fast. I'm going to take a little bit more minutes. I'm sorry. I hope it's okay. This is what we are doing with Peter in Hawaii and Hilda in Puerto Rico, and also Kabi involved now in Kenya and with us here in Colombia, as how to use the controllers from Africa to control coffee berry borer in an area wide. Quickly, we have this in Colombia. The Ivory Coast wasp, Cephalonomia, it was introduced in 1989, good predator of all the stages of the CBD, and also parasitoid on larvae and pupae of coffee berry borer. We have the Ugandan Wasp, Chlorops nasuta. It was introduced in 1990. We have it here in Colombia. We have this in Colombia. Same family, same behavior in the field, controlling coffee berry borer. And we have the Togo wasp, Phimasticus coffea, which is an eulophidae, and it was introduced in 1996. And this one is a parasitoid of adults of coffee berry borer. So this one is good, attacking, controlling coffee berry borers that are flying or just attacking the coffee berries. And the other ones are very good, decreasing the population of coffee berry borer when the coffee berry borer was already installed inside of the coffee bean. So with the funds coming from the USDA, in this project, we built this, we renovated this area in Cenicafé, and now we have a rear facility to start mass rearing these parasitoids. So it's a very nice place, it's a new place, it's working, and we have the experience rearing these insects. So the strategy that we are proposing that is already in the field, we started this in January this year, we started the releasing, but I'm going to explain this real quick. Every year, around 10 to 20% of the coffee growing area of Colombia is under renovation, so by stumping. So it's the way to keep the trees young and highly productive. But from these places, this is a picture taken from the area where we are working. And from these places, what you get is lots of coffee beans infested by coffee berry butter and a huge population of the insect pests. We have recorded around 3.5 million coffee berry butters flying from a hectare and during the next 150 days, but most of them flying in the 80% of the insects flying during the first 70 days. If we go there and release the Ugandan Wasp, so the population of the coffee berry butter would decrease. Now, if we go to these patches, there are the coffee growing, the newly coffee growing areas. So it means the one that were stumped a year before. So those crops do not have coffee berry butter at all because they have not been produced. They are not producing coffee beans. So it's impossible to have coffee berry butter in there. So everything that gets there comes from the dispersal patches, no doubt about. So without any doubt, the coffee berry butters are getting in those newly formed coffee beans coming from the dispersal patches. So if we go there and release Pymasticus, we will start protecting the coffee beans that are being in formation during that moment. So with a harvest projection like this, we have two harvesting times, as I told you. One is 30%. It happens between April and June. And the other one having the 70% production moves from September to November. So if we release early, and this is the population of the coffee berry butter. It needs food and a site for reproduction. If we release in the dispersal patches, Prorops nasuta, and then keep releasing Pymasticus coffea in the colonization patches, and then Prorops nasuta in the ones that escaped to the Pymasticus, we would be able to see something like this, like a population in the field under control, under biological control. So we are now in this situation. This is pretty much that we are proving. This is the model, the theoretical model, but it's working very well. We have released already around 2.5 million of parasitoids in a coffee farm that is big enough, it's large enough, it's 70 hectares. And we have at the experimental station as large as the other one being used as a control with no releases of the wasp. The result is on the way. Quickly, chemical ecology interactions. Flor Acevedo addressed this very well. I'm just gonna move. I believe you are, you know this, the pests producing wounds, the wounds producing volatiles, the volatiles attracting the parasitoids, and the parasitoids helping on the natural control of the pest. We are using that model to understand the mealybugs in the roots affecting the coffee producing volatiles that are attracting the establecidas, the 5 species that we have been recorded here in the roots. That's the way that the parasitoids are being called by the plant that is being under attack. Pesticides, we use pesticides, but we are not dependent on that because we use that in very low, in located places, in the right moment, but we need to take care of the parasitoids and also the pathogens that we are spraying. So we are using ecological selectivity, spraying not after 30 days of releasing, if it is the case, or releasing to 30 days after the spraying if they have been sprayed. We have been also working with a special selectivity, especially for the coffee leaf miner. If we remove all the weeds in the growing crop, we will be leaf miner attacking the plants. The plants are growing. But if we just move with this kind of tools, just selecting the noble weeds, so we get sites for flowering and we get food for the Eulophidae, and the Eulophidae would take care of the coffee leaf miner. We have changed the sprayers, equipment, to use them localized to control root mealybugs, and that's the way to protect the insecticides. Because if we use very localized in the roots only, so all the red spaces would have insecticides, but all the blue spaces would be protected, and the weeds have lots of the mealybugs, and the parasitoids would be working easily on the insects that are feeding from the weeds, not from the coffee. Pollinators is a key. I cannot go. I'm going to move fast in this way. I cannot talk much about it because it is under confidentiality. But we have been working with a bigger center of from Germany. It belongs to Bayer. It's a finishing research. But what I can tell you is we recorded more than 500 species of insects visiting flowers of coffee. 90 of those species were bees. Only one bee was introduced, this Apis mellifera, and we recorded 89 native bees, native to Colombia bees, visiting coffee flowers. So it was a beautiful research. I'm not gonna give you more details because of the time. I just want to conclude like this. For us, coffee in Colombia is not dependent on the consumption of insecticides for pest control. We are not highly dependent on that. The integrated pest management on coffee is maximizing the advantages of natural control. So we can keep establishing friendly strategies. And the Colombian coffee region is providing natural enemies and pollinators to the coffee growing area of the entire Colombia. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being here today. For me, it's a pleasure. I love working with insects in Colombia. Natural control is what triggers my life. And if you have any questions, I believe we have a few minutes.
Thank you very much, Pablo. This was a very informative, excellent presentation, and I really enjoyed the photo you have included. It was shocking to see the grasshopper and nematodes. But so that anybody has any question to Pablo, I would like to open the floor to questions.
Pablo, I have a couple of questions for you. Well, I'm going to introduce myself quickly. I am an entomologist. I am also from Colombia, so.
Excellent.
I work with as a cooperator with USDA as a risk analyst. Okay, as a pest risk analyst. So the first question that I have for you is, have you seen any specific impacts produced by climate change in the whole production system. You know, I'm not talking just about Niño, La Niña, but the actual global change. Has it affected the production practices and the pests involved?
Mm-hmm. Ernesto, thank you for your question. And very nice to meet you, a Colombian colleague there. Climate change has to be addressed. We have been working in the different altitudes. We are producing right now a paper where we follow for 3 years at very close to the 1,000 meters above the sea level and very close to the 2,000 meters above the sea level. And we have been recording the coffee berry border and natural control and the temperature. And we were lucky because we were there having the stations, the meteorological stations in place when the El Niño came and also one Niña, so we can compare and see the differences. It will affect, if we have a difference in temperature, it will affect the population of the coffee berry border. The coffee berry border is a really hard to control pest. Deal with that is it's expensive and it's hard. If we have an increase in a temperature increasing in only 1 Celsius degree, a big bunch of the coffee growing area will disappear because we will not be able to control the coffee berry border because it would be too expensive. Imagine having a life cycle in 22 days, having one female producing up to 120 eggs, having food the entire year long. So it would be hard.
Thank you. That was I think it's something that it's of high concern worldwide, and of course Colombia is not exempted. The second question that I have for you is, have you found any constraints to distribute your biological control agents in the country, considering, you know, the topography and infrastructure, etc.?
Oh yeah, the parasitoids for the coffee berry border have been in a lab for the last 20 years. I mean, it's too expensive to produce them, to rear them. The artificial diets were not working very well. We have not getting the interest of the government to support this idea, and we would need public funds. So it was good that this project with Hawaii and Puerto Rico and USDA took place, and we all were lucky because they were needing parasitoids and I had them, and I was needing funds to prove that this would work, and we were getting that. We are getting that from USDA, so it is a working thing now. So those are the main constraints that we have. For the rest, we do not produce parasitoids to release in the field. All this natural control, we are working really with conservation, biological control. It works very well. And coffee berry border, we work it with an IPM program that is based really on cultural control practices. Sanitation.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we have 1 minute, so maybe one more question.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Hi, Pablo. Excellent talk. This is sort of a follow-up to what Ernesto was talking about in terms of the changing climate conditions. You talked about how the pests had different success with different climate changes. Did you look at similar, are the predators and parasitoids and other natural enemies, do they also have ideal climate conditions, and would they be able to adapt to changing climate?
Oh, excellent. I have been thinking about that for many years. My hypothesis is that it's also, climate change will also benefit some natural controllers, because they are also associated with temperature and with those conditions. Plus, if you give them a lot of food, then you will get also an increase on the populations of the natural controllers. Unfortunately, we have not approached that in a research, and it would be a beautiful research. Try to address that question on what happened with the natural controllers when the climate change will come.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pablo. It is after 11 o'clock. So if you have any additional question, you can send it to me, or please reach out to Pablo. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Very nice to be here. Bye you. Bye everybody. Have a nice day.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pablo.